That should be a little better. We're streaming the right game at least. Oops. I want to make sure that that shows up correctly. That should be a little better. We're streaming the right game at least. Oops. I'm going to need to mute that. Okay. Looks like things look okay. Make sure I muted my phone so that you're not getting that issue. You don't need to hear when I get alerts. I am not currently seeing my updated game. Let me refresh and make sure. Okay, now it's showing me on creative. That's good. I wish some of the other things that are watching that would pick that up as well. I don't know if I'm being listed in the right category currently. Allow me to double check that real quick. Twitch TV, creative. I want to make sure everybody knows that I'm streaming programming and not Hand of Fate as I was listed. Hopefully, if we switch to creative and take a look at programming, we should be listed, maybe, hopefully. There's quite a few people programming right now. I am not showing up, so that's not cool. Where? Let's try refreshing again. Let me check my dashboard. Fix it live. That's how we roll. Fix everything live. I have everything set correctly. It says I'm playing creative. It has hashtag programming, so I don't particularly know why I'm not getting listed in the correct category on Twitch. Oh, no, there we are. There we are. Okay, cool. We're in the right category on Twitch now. So that's step one. Make sure you are listed in the right place on Twitch. That's cool. That should have propagated everywhere, I hope. It doesn't appear to have propagated correctly over to some of the other things that I have watching my channel, but that's okay. We'll deal with that for now. What I want to talk about today briefly for about an hour, I might have about an hour. I have to go to an event tonight, so I will need to do that at some point here. But what I want to talk about today is Twilio Video. It's something I've been playing around with a lot this week, and I think the theme for these Friday streams, when I'm able to do them, is going to be focusing on what I've been working on for the week. I think that's a really, really cool thing to take a look at, just as sort of a recap and that sort of thing. We've been doing a lot with iOS on this stream as we move forward. But today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm not going to start with the warm-up that we've been doing. I'm just going to dive right into taking a look at the iOS Quick Start for Twilio Video and show you some of the improvements, some of the little design tweaks that I've been making to that Quick Start as I've been rolling through working on this. So we should start by taking a look at the Quick Start itself. So this is at, you'll see this is at twilio.com/docs/API/video is where you can find this if you're looking for it. And we're going to start, like I mentioned, we're going to start from the iOS Swift Quick Start. And it's really simple to work with. You'll run out and create a Twilio account. You can sign up from twilio.com/try-twilio and create a free Twilio account. Then you'll create a configuration profile. You'll use your account SID and your API key to load up the values for those into a server app that you'll run on PHP. I already have that locally. We're not going to spend a whole lot of time taking a look at that, but what you'll end up with when you do that from your terminal, I don't want terminal, I want iTerm. What we can do is head to my projects directory. Let's see, it's under Twilio and Quick Start servers. I have this locally already. We can go to the video Quick Start. And then just like just like this says here, I can run php -s localhost port 8000, and what that's going to do is going to start the server running locally. And if I were to go to localhost port 8000, I would see this video demo ready to go. It's not going to do a whole lot. It might not do anything at the moment. Preparing to listen, that's not great. But what we're going to do using that, failed opening required config.php. What did we do here? Did we mess something up? Cat. Oh, I see what I did. Let's rename config.example to, no, move, not rename. Move config.example to config.php, which is what it wants to be named, and try running that again. And refresh. This should work. I was just using this the other day, so I know it should work. If not, we can cut over to running it again. I'll just have to run off external server. It doesn't look like I'm getting a token back from the server, so that's disconcerting. What I do want to take a look at though, and we don't need to do too much actual running of the video code. What I wanted to show you is what you'll get by default in the Quick Start project for iOS, and I wanted to show you some of the tweaks that I've been making with auto layout to fix some issues from there. Not issues, but actually just kind of tweaking the design a little bit. So if we scroll down here, you can do download for Swift. And if I open that project up in the terminal, right here, and then run pod install. So our video SDK uses CocoaPods for managing its dependencies. So there's two CocoaPods from Twilio for video. One is the Twilio Conversations SDK, which is the video itself, and then Twilio Common, which is some underlying code that works for all of them. So you'll see Common and Conversations client get brought in. And then one thing we need to do, I noticed, is perhaps from this video quick start, we could projects / Twilio / quick start servers, video quick start. If I run this PHP as localhost port 8000, and then we actually ngrok this out. So this is going to create, using ngrok, which you can get at ngrok.com, create an HTTP tunnel for port 8000 at subdomain Brent. That'll give us brent.ngrok.io. And if I go to, we'll need this in a moment in the iOS SDK. This is a token server. So this will vend tokens to allow our SDK to work. And that appears to be running correctly, although we're not getting a token back by the looks of it. So I'm going to have to dig into that in a second. So we have that running. We have our dependencies installed in the Swift application, and that means that we can now open the Video Quick Start XC Workspace, which is the project that will have all of our Twilio video dependencies fully loaded for us. And if I fire that up here, we can take a look at what we get by default. The first thing we need to do is in the Video Quick Start source files, if we go to the view controller and take a look right here at the access token, we actually want to specify that we want this to be reached at brent.ngrok.io instead of localhost. The reason for this is I'm able to access that over HTTPS, and that is required if I were to run it on device without making configuration changes. That would be required on device by Apple. They want people to use HTTPS URLs. and I'll totally buy into that. Let's see if things are working. I may need to dig into that server issue that we're having real quick. Potentially. Depends on if this logs in correctly or not. I guess we'll see. And it's going to load up, and it's going to connect, and we get a SIG abort. What is the problem? Of course, bad instruction. Why? What happened? Let's see what happened, actually. It looks like we did get an identity back, so something is being parsed incorrectly somewhere. And I'm wondering if potentially something changed, because this was totally working earlier. And I'm not getting a breakpoint where this is actually happening, so this might be for not. Let's look at the stack trace. If you do load initialize client, we're in here, we're calling self.client.listen. So we did get a token back. So I can stick a breakpoint right here, and we'll see what happens. I may have to cut short because this might be a blocking issue at the moment. Unless perhaps we can download a new instance of the server, and I can do that off screen real quick, and then we'll try that and see if maybe it's an updated issue. Let's see if we got a token back at least. It looks like we do self.access token. Yeah, we got a token back. So there's something going on in the SDK right there, I think, that was causing us trouble. Yeah, so let's see. I'm going to turn off the code view for a second. You'll get just me for a moment while I try to fix this issue. So I think we've got a new version of the server or something that I need to grab. So let's do that. And the reason I'm going off screen for a second is I'm gonna have to punch in some credentials, and it would be best if you didn't see those. I'm going to set this to a different folder called test, and I'm going to put that back into my projects folder. Quick start servers, and we'll try this. I just need to throw some credentials in there, and we'll be good to try that out. Video quick start test, and then I need to move the config.example to config.php and add config.php. Okay. Let me get this set up correctly, and we'll be good to go. I just need to grab a few values. I'm putting in, sorry for the noise outside, it's a very busy intersection behind me. I'm gonna throw, let's see, what can I do for you guys in the meantime? I was gonna throw a video up, but this isn't gonna take very long. So just bear with me for a few more seconds. I just need to get some credentials loaded in. I need an account SID, and then a configuration profile, which I think I was using this blog profile guy right here. Configuration profile. Just a couple credentials that you have to set up in your project for this to work. I'll do this. I'll take them out of the other example that I was doing earlier. Oh, I see what the problem is. You know, the problem is I didn't actually have values. I didn't actually have values in config.php in the other server. I must have been running out of a different directory yesterday when I was testing this. So that's my fault entirely. I just need an API key and a secret then, which I'll grab shortly. I can get those from DevTools. Oops. I'm just gonna create a new one. Testy. And copy paste. And we'll be good to go in another couple seconds. So what I'm doing right now is just reconfiguring my server because I made a blunder and did not have all of my credentials. Nightbot appears to be offline. That's not cool. I don't know why. He seems to have left the channel. That's not cool. Let's get this server running again. Alright. That's the wrong one. Man, I was way more prepared for this, in theory. But the problem is, I didn't anticipate that I was not running the code from where I thought I was. I think now, if I go to brent.ngrok.io, hey, that's what I expected to see. Okay, cool. We're good to go. We're back in business. I can close out all of these things. And I can give you, dear lovely viewers, I can give you the screen back because my credentials are gone, which is awesome. I'm going to do one more thing. I want Nightbot in my channel, and I don't think he currently is. So let's get Nightbot back in here. Still don't see Nightbot. That's okay. We'll go without a Nightbot. I don't know why that service is down. That's disconcerting. I may be ditching Nightbot forever if Nightbot does not rejoin us, because Nightbot is my chat moderator. Yay, send whatever you want. Okay, we have the server working again, which is great, and that means that if we rerun this iOS application, we should no longer be suffering from bad instructions. So cool, that works. We're not going to see video on screen because I'm obviously on my laptop in the simulator and not on device. We can test that later when it makes sense. Right now it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm in the wrong scene. I want this one. There we go. There we go. So right now, as it stands, obviously you're not going to see any video on screen, but we want to fix some things. I don't want to say fix, that's not the right connotation. We want to make some improvements on this design. So I think one thing that stood out to me is that we could probably do better. We could probably do better with the hangup button. We could do a button style for that. We could move this label. I think this label's awkward and it gets cut off. One of the things that was in the IP messaging client that was created for the quick start was that this info moved up into the nav bar, which is really cool. So we could move this label up into the nav bar's prompt, so it would be right up above the top. So it would give us sort of that status indication. So it would say logging in before we log in, and then once we're logged in, it'll say logged in as whatever your name is. This token server automatically generates us a random username when it gets started. So we don't necessarily know what name we're going to have when we log into this thing. So that's why it might be helpful to show that somewhere prominently. So we need a hangup button. And then there's some features that this thing doesn't, that this quick start doesn't support that I think you would want in a chat application. For starters, it doesn't allow you to mute your audio, which I think is super helpful. And it doesn't allow you to switch from front to rear facing camera. So those are two things that we can pretty easily add to the application without a whole lot of work. And in the process, we can do a little bit of design tweaking. So let's dig into what that would look like. How would we make that particular change? The changes that we want to make, we need to first take a look at what's in the storyboard. So from the UI, what do we have going on in the UI? So here's that label. that we don't really necessarily want, and here's that hang up button that I feel like we could probably do visually instead of having text. So the idea here is to change this button so that it is a picture, so an image button instead of text, and also move this label from here up to the prompt. So what we do for that, for the first part, is we can get this nav bar, and what we want to do in the nav bar is set the prompt to start out as logging in, which is what's shown below. So now, instead of having that label down here, we'll actually move it up into the status bar. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a pretty easy tweak. The first thing we can really do is, we can move this out of here. We don't even need this label anymore. We can go over to the view controller where it's referenced and delete it there as well. And we'll do that. That is the what is that? That is the identity label. So we can delete the identity label, and we'll look for places where it is called out. Identity label, other places in code. So this self.identitylabel.text, instead of doing that, we'll want to do self.navigation item dot prompt. So dot prompt equals self.client.identity. And we may need to do something else here. No, I think this one works as is. I don't think there's any sort of conditional, optional stuff that we need to do there. I think we're good with that change. So provided identity label doesn't appear anywhere else, we can just remove that as well. So we've done the first thing, which is get this label out of here. And we moved it up to the top. And the next thing that we need to do is the hang up button. So I waffled on this for a bit and decided when I was creating the content for an upcoming blog post that I would just create my own buttons. I don't mind doing that. I went to the Noun project and I searched for, I think I searched for hang up phone, and I found this, which I actually like quite a bit, and I downloaded it as an SVG, and I have that locally. I downloaded that as an SVG, and I believe that will still be sitting here in my downloads folder. It's one of these guys. Let's see. I think it's that one. Yeah. Spoiler alerts, there's some more of those coming. So this is the phone that I decided to use. I'm going to show you what my workflow was for creating the image. So I use Sketch. I use Sketch a lot. And I'll start this out as a new graphic. What I did was I created not a rectangle. We don't want a rectangle. We want an oval. I created an oval. I created a circle, actually, and I created it. We want the resulting button that we're going to create to be roughly 40 pixels, so a pretty decent hit size, but a fairly small button. So I went out to 3x that, so 120 by 120, and I changed the border on this to be white, and I changed the fill to be a kind of soft red. So you don't want a super harsh red in the application. So I went with something fairly close to this, I think. And then the next step, obviously, is we need our SVG. And what's really neat is in Sketch, you can just bring this SVG right onto the playing field here. And I guess it's the artboard. We're not playing games or sports here. And I'm just going to delete these attributions. Now you need to attribute anything you take off the Noun project. So if you use these graphics in your application, you're going to want to call this out somewhere, like on a credit screen or something, so that people know that you've used icons that you grabbed from the Noun project. And then what I did was I just brought it in here and placed it nicely, maybe a little further down And then each one of these little paths in here, I changed the fill to not a gradient, changed it to white. So like this. And then you'll want to take this, this entire group visually a little bit above center, I guess vertically, and then centered horizontally. Looked about right to me. And these two things are what we're going to want to group together. So I'll treat these as a group. And then what we end up with that created is our hang up button. And we can go through and tweak how this hang up button looks. But I'm going to give this group a name and I'll call it hang up. And what I would do with that, the reason I gave it a name is because I'm going to export it out. It's a 3x and I'm not going to give it any sort of suffix, but I'm going to export this out. I'm going to export this out to a new folder on my desktop, which we'll call images. And that's going to give me a PNG that I can bring into our Xcode project. Come back to Xcode, and inside of the supporting files of our project, we have this thing called assets.xc assets. If I click on that, you'll see the only thing we have in there right now is an app icon, and it actually doesn't even have anything inside of it. What we want to do is click the plus down here and say new image set. And I am going to rename this image hang up. So that's how we've named it for the file. And then I'm going to take that image that we just created on the desktop inside of this images folder, and I'm going to drag it to the 3x spot. We created a 3x size image. I'm not going to create the 2x and the 1x. I mean, you can do that, but basically that's all we need to do. And if I come back over to the storyboard, you'll see that we can tweak this button. So what I want to do is I want to set it so that its size is 40 by 40. And then I'm going to set it so that it's horizontally centered within our view, because that's the design that I'm going for. And we'll also change so that it doesn't have text, but it has an image instead. And that image is going to be the hang up icon that we just created, which we can see we now have available here. So that's going to be our first real major design tweak. And we'll accomplish that by first setting some properties inside of pin. We're going to set the width to 40 and the height to 40 so that those remain equal, and I'm going to add those constraints. Now we're going to get some conflicts and some things that don't quite line up with what has been specified before. The way we can fix that is we select our button, come over to where our constraints live, which is in this inspector here. That's the size inspector. And you'll notice that the reason it's got conflicts is because there were already some constraints set up before. Now, I don't want this to be greater than equal to 40. I want this actually to be equal to 40. So those are the first things we need to tweak. We'll change these to both be equal. And then we'll simply delete the other ones. So there's one that says that the height should equal 30, and there's one that says the width should equal 61. Get rid of both of those, and now we'll have our 40 by 40 guaranteed. But you'll notice that we're not in the right place here. So if I select the button and I say update frames for selected control, update, oh, you know what happens? We just did something bad. All right, select the button, update frames for selected view, and now it's 40 by 40, and that's cool. That's going to give us a decently sized button. But the problem is, obviously, it's not where we want it, and it's also not looking the way we want it to. So what do we want to do? We want to get rid of this text, for starters, and we want to change this to have an image. And once again, selecting the button and saying update selected views gets us back sort of where we want to be. I noticed something in this image, the way I've created it here, I don't particularly like the white border that we have going on there. So I'm going to come back to the button for the oval, and I'm going to turn off that border. But what I do want is to add a shadow. So we're going to add just a nice subtle shadow. I'll take the default shadow from Sketch. That's not bad at all. And we're going to export this once again. We're going to export the hangup group back out to the images folder, overwrite it, and then drag that back into our assets like so. Just to update this, it does make a copy, so you do have to replace it. But that's going to be, I think that's going to look better in the storyboard. I don't particularly like the border that we created before. This might be small. I think we want something a little bigger. I think we want, what is this, 80 by 80? I think we can get away with 60 by 60. Let's try that on for size. This looks like it might just be a little small. So I can go back up to here, change these 40s to 60s. And then the frames should stay where they are. That looks a little better. It's hard to tell not on device whether that is a good size or not. But the next thing we want to do is, it's not positioned where I wanted it. I said I wanted it in the center, and we do want that. We also we lost a change, didn't we? How did that happen? We had this was logging in, and we deleted this. I thought we did. Maybe we didn't save that change. I think I deleted it out of here though, right? Yeah, it's gone from here. Okay, cool. So we got rid of that label. And what we're going to want to do now is we're going to want to center this. I don't want to center it. It's currently grouped inside of view, which is good. If I'm not careful about how I do the control drag, which is how you create connections. If I'm not careful, you'll notice that you might not be able to see it, but it's trying to create the constraint based on remote media, which is actually a view inside of the main view. What I want to do is create the constraint within the container view. So to be safe, I'm going to do that over to the list instead. And what I want to do is center horizontally. And then I also want to, and we're gonna get some conflicting things here, because I've told it to center, but it's also set. I've told it to center, but it also has some trailing space and bottom space things set. So I want to get rid of this trailing space, so that instead of being red is now orange. And what we can do to verify that we're on the right path is I can say, hey, update that selected view to where you think it should be. And now it's where I think it should be. The space from the bottom is not nearly enough though. I would like that to be 20 points off of the bottom, so I'll change that. And now we're pretty much where I want it to be. And then for this guy, I think he's in the wrong space. 80 by 80 is fine. Leading space of 8, probably fine. But he has no relationship to the bottom anymore, because that was based on the label that we just deleted. So instead of having it based on the label, we want to make it based on the view. And we'll say that will be the trailing space. Not trailing space, vertical space to bottom layout guide. And we'll tweak that not to be 37, but to be 20, just like our button, which means the bottoms will align. And if we update all frames in the view, they'll line up correctly. So we made another tiny tweak to this application, which is to add a hangup button that has an image instead of the text that was there before. And we've removed the label from the bottom here, moving the contents of that label up into the prompt of the nav bar. If there's anybody in the chat, if you have joined, let me know if you are a software developer and where you're from, just so I know what is going on. And I will point out that what I'm working on is Twilio video Twilio Video SDK for Swift. That's what we're working off of. For details on that, you can go to twilio.com/video. The quick start that we're working off of, you can find at twilio.com/docs/API/video, following the link in there that says iOS, get started with iOS. And that's what we've been sort of iterating on, is the application that you get from there. And what we've done so far is added the ability for, essentially we've added the ability for us to, instead of having the label show up down here as it does, this might be a little big actually, I think 40 might have been spot on. Let's tweak that. Let's change that back to 40. I think that's a little big. I think we had it with 40. So we added a hang up button that is visual in nature. The default application that you'll get has it as text that says hang up. It's just a default button. Here we actually have a hang up button rendering in. What is the scale here? Yeah, we're at 100%. That's cool. We got a little rendered jagged edges on this circle. That's something we could tweak. But you'll notice down here that that button's wired up to disconnect. What I'm wondering is if this will work with our video setup. What do we have? Mushy Xander Oakland. I don't know if this works in the simulator or not, or if I'm going to need to go grab a phone. But if I send an invite, yeah, unable to create conversation. Mushy Xander Oakland. Yeah, I don't think. Let's grab this and try hardware. We want hardware keyboard. So I can try pasting. Oh, pasting's not working. Oh, there we go. Try that direction. Yeah, I think I'm going to need to grab an actual device for that to work. Bear with me for 1 second. I'm going to grab, I have a phone. I need a lightning cable. I don't have one right here. So I'll be right back. Let me just add some text that says BRB real quick. BRB. And throw that right here. Yeah, like I said. I wasn't even kidding. I was right back. I just had one in the other room. I had to find it. So we plugged that in. We can run this on my actual phone. Let me just clear notifications off of this guy and go into DND. Do not disturb. Cool. So what we can do, I can go to the BRB since I'm actually back. Cool. What we can do is load up QuickTime and do a movie recording. We're not actually going to do a movie recording, but we're going to set this to my phone, and then we'll run the application on the phone. Whoa there, whoa there. We're a little large. Okay, now we can run this on my actual device, and then we should be able to connect. We should be able to connect the video in the phone to the video on the browser, which is much more illustrative of how Twilio Video works, I suppose, than seeing it in the simulator where it doesn't really work. So I'm just waiting for that to install. Once it does, I'll switch back over to the QuickTime player and we'll see it operating. Let me just make sure it logs in correctly. Cool. So if we take a look, now we have this running on my phone. And what I can do now is hop over to the browser, and we're going to want to send an invite to, what is this, Zesty Lando Jamestown. So if I send an invite to Zesty Lando Jamestown, oh, we get unable to create a conversation again. What is, are we getting any errors here? No, I don't understand. Wow, this is going swimmingly, huh? Let's see. Can I send it the other direction? Maybe. I'm gonna potentially have to debug some stuff. Xeno. Oh, of course I get a name that's like impossible to type. Xenophobic. Ulysses. I think Kevin Winnery did this just to troll me. These names. Here we go. Incoming invite. Oh, I see. The connection's not happening on the website. But if you take a look, inside the iPhone side is actually working. We have local media on the iPhone side that's working correctly. And our hangup button, I gotta tell you, 40 is definitely wrong. It's way too small. Just putting my finger up to it, it's too small. I think we were right with 60. It looked weird on screen, but it's totally right at 60. So we can hop back over and make that change. We'll just punch that change in there. We'll stop the one that is running locally, and we'll stop the one that's running on the simulator. So what we're seeing is that the participant is busy. So I don't know why that is happening, but we'll continue with the design tweaks that we're making. And we'll come back in a future stream to take a look at how to get it working a little better. 60 and 60. This is why you should always test on device. So like when I put my finger up to the 40 by 40, it was way too small. And it would be easy to miss. So 60 by 60 on device looked correct. It looked pretty big on the iPhone 5S, but we could make a tweak on the iPhone 5S to make it look smaller. That's fine. We could do that for different size classes. So that's that. I made a couple of other buttons that called some code that we can't really test right now, but I can show you what those buttons looked like. If we take a look at, let me just open my other project. I'll show you what I ended up with when I was working on this the other day. So inside of the storyboard, we have a hang up button. I guess it was a little darker in that one. And we have a switch camera button and a mute button. And these work, let's see, built to run on bphone, run that guy. And then let's try this one more time. https print hangup.io. In fact, let's rerun the server. Let's close this guy. Close out the application on my phone, and we'll rerun the server. First things first, I want to take a look at something real quick, so toggle that for a sec, and I want to test that the credentials are set up correctly. Cat config.php. Yep, got all the config things. Clear. Turn the screen back on, and we'll try running this again. Local host port 8000. And then go to brent.ngrok.io. One thing, I wonder if this is set up incorrectly. Content settings, webcam. So these are, yep, that's the problem. FaceTime camera. Done. Let's try that. Let's see if that helps. Preview my camera. Unable to access camera and microphone. Yeah, okay. So that is definitely the problem. I don't know why that would be. Let's try this in Firefox, just for kicks. Print.ngrok.io. Preview my camera. Ah, hey, it gives me the prompt. I'll say FaceTime camera. Share selected devices. All right. I will say, sometimes these things work better in Firefox. Oh, hello, iData. iData, are you a software developer? That's the first question I have for you. What I am doing is I am building an iOS application, which I can show you running on my phone. I am working with an iOS application that allows me to make video calls. Oh, not a developer. Okay, cool. So what I'm doing is I'm building a video chat application using iOS. So it's an iOS application using Swift, using something called Twilio. You can find out more about that if you're curious here. And so what this does, if I hop back over to my browser and see what this is named, if I do, let's see, Wicked Penny Fresno. So I want to create a connection to Wicked Penny Fresno. I say invite. And this is going to create a video call. You can see my local media pops up, and then the browser should connect when I hit share selected devices. You'll notice now I have video chat, obviously with myself, but if somebody else was out there, they could see it. And if I toggle the camera by hitting this bottom right button, my camera switches to an external camera, so I can point at other things. Now you can see the laptop. And the idea here is that it's super simple to do this. And if I mute, you can't hear stuff going into the phone. These are just super simple things to add. Hit the hangup button to kill the call. This stuff's really easy to build, and the idea here is to just show how easy it is to build a chat application in iOS with Swift. And what I did was I took our basic quick start application, which doesn't have a whole lot of design applied to it, and I showed how easy it would be to create a hangup button, and then I was going to proceed to show how to create the other two buttons that I just showed you in the application that I was working on. If that makes any sense, let me know. If it doesn't, I can try again. But the idea is, I was just adding some design features. So the next thing that I was going to do was show how to create that flip camera. Because if we run this application, that was the other thing. If I run this application, the only thing we get is the front-facing camera. There's no way to switch to the rear-facing camera. So by default in the quick start, so that's where the software developer would start. He or she would go to twilio.com/video. They would get interested, and they would go to this docs page, and they would go to get started on iOS, and they would download this project. And this project that they would end up with would only allow them to use the front-facing camera, and they would want to allow their users to use the back side of the camera. And by default, we don't get that support. So if I hop over to Firefox and go back to our video page and get a username here, and I send an invite to what do I have right now? This one. Jolton Hannah Davenport. These are just randomly generated names. Jolton Hannah Davenport, and I send an invite, and we take a look at iOS as we do this. Let me resize this browser window. That'll make it easier. And I send that invite, and I say share my camera, It'll make the connection, and again, I'll be able to control the front side of the camera, but I don't have a button yet to toggle to switch to the other side, so that you can see the rear camera over here. So this is my front-facing camera. You can see me recording, but I don't have the ability to switch cameras, and that's the feature that I was just about to try to add to the application for you. And we're gonna need a button for that. I was mentioning earlier that I got some assets from the Noun project earlier, and these are for mute, obviously, but this one I found is good for switching camera. So this is off of the nounproject.com. Very simple asset to work with. If I hop over to Sketch, I didn't ask iData, what do you do? What do you do? You're not a software developer. What do you do? And I'll continue while I wait for that. But what we're going to want to do is create another button, just like this hangup button, except we'll do it for, instead of hangup, it's going to be switch camera. First thing I'm going to do, obviously, is tweak this inside of, let's make it this one that we're tweaking. This is going to be switch camera. The first thing, obviously, I don't want this one to be red. I don't necessarily like the red that we chose on this either. Let's darken it just a tad. And then I'm going to change high school student. Hey, cool. That's awesome. That's great. I'm glad you were looking for new and interesting things to watch, and you decided to check out programming. I think that's really cool. I'm just doing some basic stuff, and it seems like it's a room of just me and you at the moment. So if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm going to choose this blue. I think this blue looks nice. Could have chosen any color I want, but I kind of like the way that blue looks. And that's going to be the base for our switch camera button. And what we do here is we'll bring in this SVG file off disk and just drop it in here. And I was mentioning at the beginning that when you use these, you really want to keep track of who it is that created this image, because the terms for using these, you're allowed to do whatever you want with them. But if you've used somebody's image off of the Noun project, you need to give them attribution. So you would create a screen inside of your application. Maybe it's an about page or a credits page or something in your application. It doesn't have to be easy to find, but something in your application has to say, I used images from the following list of people. So we would give this guy credit. But we don't want that to be in the actual image, so we'll delete it. And then what we need to do here with the rest of this is there are pieces and parts that make up this shape. So you can see them over on the left here. This group, if I select that box is around the camera itself. And then there's these little arrows down below as well. And there's an oval on the inside. And what we need to do is change the color to white on each of these. So I'll just do them one at a time. We'll grab that one, and then this one, and then the shape is composed of a couple different pieces. We'll change this one to white. What we really want is everything to disappear. And then the oval that's in the middle, we want to be white. Once everything's disappeared, we know they're all white. And we can grab them as a group and move them into the circle. And it looks the way we want it to. It's too big, obviously. But what we'll do is we will shrink that down until it looks right. It's kind of a thing that you have to play with until you know you've got it. I'm going to grab that entire group and move it inside of the button and then delete that folder that's outside. So you'll notice we have, much like this one down below, we had a group that represents the phone. And for this one, we have a group that represents the camera with the switch arrows. And they're inside the circle. The reason I want to put them inside the circle is now I'll get lines that indicate when it's centered. So now I know that the camera is going to be correctly centered inside of the circle. And that's cool. I think these look pretty good. This might just be a little too big compared to the hang up button. So go something like that. I think that looks pretty good, and that would be what we would then bring into the application. So I've got switch camera. I'll just do export down here, which is it's gonna take the graphic that's on screen that represents that blue button, and it's gonna export it out as a PNG image, which I can bring into our project stop that, bring that into what's called the asset catalog. And earlier we created a hangup image. That's an image set that works on all different kinds of iPhones. We'll do the same thing. We just click this plus here, say new image set, and I will name that image switch camera, like this. And then we can go to our files, which I have on the desktop, and we can drag this switch camera image that we just created into Xcode. So now we have access to that switch camera image inside of our project, which is going to allow us to use it inside of our application when we create a new button. Speaking of creating a new button, that's what we need to do next. So I'll come down here and create a button. We'll just drag it out. And we want to place this, in the right spot. So I don't want this to be inside of remote media, which is this big black box. I want it to be placed inside of the entire screen, so that it doesn't live nested inside of remote media. We want it to be right next to hangup button. And just like we did with hangup button, we're going to need to change the height and width. So we want this to be 60 by 60, so it's a square. And then we will change, let's see, first things first, select button and update so that it looks like a 60 by 60 button. Now, of course, it's gone way off screen. We can fix that. So we'll drag from button to bottom layout guide, say vertical spacing, and then we'll change, let's see, it didn't work. We want vertical spacing to bottom layout guide. And then we're going to change that. That's this guy right here. It says that the distance between the bottom of the screen and the button should be 535. I don't think so. I think it should be 20. So we'll change it to 20. And that's going to move it to the bottom of the screen. And then we also want to do the same thing to the edge. So I want it to be next to this button, this hangup button. I want it to be a little bit to the left of it. No, we want it to be a little to the right of it. So I'll control drag from our switch camera button to the hangup button, and I'll say that I want the trailing edge. So the trailing edge is saying that I want it to be a certain distance from the right hand side of the hangup button. So I'll say trailing, and trailing, actually I don't want to align trailing. I want horizontal distance. Hold on, trailing distance, what is that? Horizontal spacing. Okay, I want horizontal spacing. So what I'm going to have to do probably is move this button to where I want it. How am I going to do that? Because it's off screen. It doesn't let me actually grab it because it's off screen. So what I'm going to do, I think, in the short term is we're going to move it to the right of the screen. So we'll say that we want it to be trailing space to container margin. I'll set that equal to, I'll set that also equal to, let's say 10. So that's going to say I want it 20 from the bottom and 10 from the right. You can tell that that's been done correctly because of this orange dotted box. This orange dotted box says that's where I expect the button to be. Why isn't the button there? And I can change it so that the button is there by hitting this button and saying update frames. So now our button is where we want it to be. Well, it's not where we want it to be, it's where I just told it to be. Where we want it to be is right next to this hangup button. And now that we have it on screen, it's a lot easier for me to do that. So if I grab the button, we can, actually I don't want to do that. let's undo that. I want to say horizontal spacing from these two, and it's currently going to be set to a lot, I think. Hang up button. Okay, we want horizontal spacing between button and hang up button to be constrained. So it's currently set to 10, and I think that's, no, not set to 10. Leading space to hang up button equal to 180. That's not what we want. We want that to be, I think, 10, maybe 20. 20. I think 20 is good spacing. So we want hang up button and then 20 little pixels of space and then switch camera button. I think that'll work pretty good. And then obviously this button is blue text that says button. That's not what we want. So we can select the button, we'll clear the text out, and we'll change the image to switch camera, and then we'll resolve this view issue, and then there we go. So we have a switch camera button and hang up button. Now the switch camera button's not actually going to do anything yet because we haven't programmed it, but it looks right. It's positioned correctly in the view. It looks nice. We can run the application to see if it indeed looks nice on device by switching over to, oh, I closed it. We'll have to run QuickTime again. Pro tip: if you have an iPhone, if you plug it into your laptop and open up QuickTime Player and do a new movie recording, if you have your phone plugged in, it'll show up in this list as something that you can record, which is pretty cool. And we're going to use that. We're going to use that here to see what the application looks like. So it's basically doing a screencast from the phone. And you'll see that that button is there, and we can tap it. It won't do anything. The reason it won't do anything is because we haven't written any code for it to do anything. And that we're going to fix right now. So we'll hide this. We will go to Assistant Editor. And the first thing we need is we need to create what is called an action. So I'm going to scroll down in the code to where we're going to put it. So this is the code that runs when we push hang up. So if I click that, or if I highlight this thing right here, it'll show the hang up button being highlighted. So this is a function that will run when the button is tapped, when the hang up button is tapped. And what it does by default is it prints out disconnect into the logs so that we can see that it's been tapped. And it calls the disconnect function on the conversation. So in effect, tapping that button ends the video call, which is what we want. And now we want some code to run when we tap this switch camera. And we can do that by control dragging. So we hold down control and we drag from the button over to the code. And we will, oh, I put the space in the wrong place. We want to put it here. So we can control drag from here and drop right there and say that we want to create an action, and we want that to be switch camera. So this function right here will run when we tap that switch camera button. So just to make sure that that's working before we do anything else, we'll do the same thing. We'll do switch camera right here, and I'll run the application again so that you can see that it's working. Does it do anything if you hold the button down? There is a way to do that. So what we've programmed right now, I can show you. What we've programmed right now is what's called touch up inside. Touch up inside means that I've touched on the phone on a button, and I've released my finger while still on the button. So what that gives me as a user is the ability to cancel. So I can put my finger down on the button, decide, nope, I don't want to do that. I can move my finger away and then lift, and it won't run any code. I have to actually keep my finger in the button and release. There are other things you can do. So this touch down repeat That's what you would want to do if you wanted to do something if you held it down. So touch down repeat means placed a finger on it and kept the finger there, and it keeps doing it because he doesn't want to let go. So if you wanted to do something like maybe you were making a game and you wanted to keep firing missiles when someone held a button down, touch down repeat would be the kind of event for that. Hopefully that makes sense. But we're doing touch up inside, which means I've lifted the touch while I was still on the button. And we can see whether that's working or not. So I can show you the code is still running, or it's running again because we just ran it again. And what you want to look for is right over here. When I tap the switch camera button, notice it says switch camera each time I tap it. You can see it's blinking over on the left. Each time I tap that, it is saying switch camera. Obviously, we don't want it to just have text when we switch camera. We want it to actually switch the camera. I'm just going to briefly look at what I wrote for that. Yeah, it's just self.camera, switch camera. Okay, so this is what's really cool is that this could be really complicated, or it could be really easy. If we do self.camera dot I think it's switch, or is it flip camera? Flip camera. That's it. This one line of code will switch from the front to the back camera. That's it. It's real easy to do, and that's kind of the power of this this programming tool, is that it's really easy. And if we run the code again, and if we open it alongside the browser and go to this page, and then I run the code, in a second it'll run on the phone. It's still loading up. But if I run this on the phone and run this in the browser, and I come over to the browser and I send an invite, hey, thanks for the follow. Sign up for alerts. I do this frequently. I mean, I'll just hop on every now and then. Then you'll know when you can tune in. I do stream every. Where are you located? I stream every Wednesday morning, from 9 Eastern till about 11:30 Eastern, and then I do impromptu ones whenever I have time to just sort of hop on here and code for a bit. And I also play games, so I stream Rocket League from time to time. I stream I got a variety of games, but I love playing Rocket League, so I play that from time to time. Hearthstone from time to time. I love Hearthstone. But right now we're talking about programming. I'm going to send this invite. So we've got Pompous Nate Davenport is who we're logged in as. And I'm going to send the invite to the phone. We want the right camera here. And I'll say share selected devices. Oh, we're getting this again. Unable to create conversation. Why? It was working so well. Let's try it the other direction. No, we'll do it this direction. It should work. Pompous Nate Davenport. Maybe I typed it wrong. There we go. I think the connection's happening this time. Okay, cool. So right now I have the front-facing camera. Now let's see if our switch is working. So if I tap on switch camera, this view is the one that's going to change right here. Tap that. There we go. And that's the fuse box inside of my apartment. This is my microphone, and there's the computer that we're working off of. So that worked. That was easy. That was one line of code. The hang up button we'll test. That works. Obviously the connection dies. So really simple. We did a little bit of work to design a nice looking switch camera button, and we wrote essentially one line of code to flip the local camera. Obviously this camera device had to be set up somewhere, but that's how easy it can be to do something as complicated as switching from the front facing camera to the rear facing camera. Something that could require a lot of code that really just, it just requires one with our SDK. Pretty fun to work with. The only other thing that I added in the other application is some code to mute, and I'm just going to grab I'm gonna grab the code out of this one, and we'll quickly, because I'm running out of time. I got about maybe 10-15 minutes left. We'll quickly create another button for mute, and the way we'll do that is the same way we've done the other ones. We'll just start with an oval. We can start with the same color that we had last time. That blue works pretty good for our arbitrary buttons. And I've already got the assets for this one as well in downloads. I think I sided with these two. I tweaked them a little bit though. We won't do the tweaked versions, but essentially, actually, we can just use the one that I already created, just to save some time. You saw how to create the button in Sketch. I showed how that works. I already have one created for this already. So if I go to new image set, I can change the name of this one to mute, and we'll grab the one that I already created. That is on Dropbox. In video design, we're gonna need mute, and we're gonna need one for unmute. So we'll do mute first. So there's mute, and then we'll create another one called unmute. So you want to be able to toggle between the two. So we have two for that. I named this image mic for some reason because it looks like a microphone. So those are the tweaked versions of mute and unmute. And then if we go to our storyboard, we can create yet another button. And what we want to do with this button is put it to the left of hangup button. So what I'm going to do to save a little bit of effort is I'm just going to create a copy of the button, of the switch camera button, just because that's going to be easier to sort of work with. And if we take a look at the properties for that button, the constraints, auto layout constraints, we don't have anything specifying where it should be located, which is how we started with the other one. The difference is we should be able to, we're gonna have to do the same thing we did last time. So we want it to be 20 from the bottom. So that was vertical spacing to bottom layout guide, and then we set that over here to 20. And then we can reposition that button back down to the bottom like we did before. Update frames. So now it's way over here off to the left. And then we'll do the same hack that we did last time, just for ease. We'll move it over to the right. Trailing space to container margin, set that to 20. It's a little bit of a hack. I think I actually want to move that. Let's move it over to the other side, just so it's over to the left of the hangup button, which is where we want it. And then I'm just kind of hacking around what's kind of a bad system. Now I can drag to hangup button and say that I want the horizontal spacing to be what we did 20 with the other one, right? I want to get rid of that, and then I'll say trailing space to hangup button is 20, and that should group those buttons together as a nice little package of buttons next to each other. So we've got what is going to eventually be a mute icon on the left and a switch camera button on the right. So we've got a nice little button group. They look nicely spaced and everything. What we need to do obviously is change the image. So that's not what we want. We don't want the switch camera image. We want this to start off, since we're going to start off with the microphone being on, we want to switch this to mute to start. So that's going to be our mute button, since it's going to be by default that the microphone will be on. We'll mute it, and then we'll switch that in code to being off. I'm just going to copy and paste the code because, like I said, I'm running out of time a little bit, for now at least. And what we're going to do is the same thing we did with the other button. Let's find that. We had the hangup button and the switch camera button. Create a little bit more space here, and we'll drag from that button into code and create an action called toggle mute. And inside of toggle mute, I don't know why it just jumped to the top. Inside of toggle mute, we will paste the code that I grabbed from the other project that I was working on. And I'll just describe what this code's doing. I also need, since I'm going to change the image, I also need access to this button. So just for sake of brevity, I'm going to create it here. You would want to create it at the top of the file. I'm going to create what's called an outlet, which gives me a variable so that I can access the button. And we'll just call it mute button. That's how I have it named in code. And that'll repair these little angry squigglies. And I'll just go through what this code does briefly. This says get the local media. So the local media, you can think of that as my camera and microphone on my device. So if I'm holding my phone, the local media is the camera and microphone on that phone. So if that exists, that's what this is saying. If that exists, let me call it local. So I'm going to be able to refer to that as local if it exists in here. And what I'm doing is, if the microphone is muted locally, then when I tap the button, if it's muted, set it to not muted. So set it to false. Set it so that it's not muted, and update the image on the button to the mute button. So we're just toggling between the two things. And if it's the other direction, so if it is currently not muted, then set it to muted for starters, and then change it to, oh, this says mic on. So what did I do? I called it unmute in our current project. So switch the mute button's image from mute to unmute. So essentially these lines of codes, this one here and this one here, do the actual muting of the audio. And these two lines, this one and this one, change the image of the button to match the current state of the microphone. And that's it. It's a little more complicated than the flip camera example, but we had to do some button image changing based on the status. So if we run this again on the iPhone and we take a look inside the browser, might want to refresh that. It looks like it hung up a little bit. And we're going to have a different username. But if we run that again and hop over to QuickTime, we get a blank screen. I don't know why. I think my iPhone just crashed. That's not going to work out too well. Yay, iPhone. Yeah, I know it timed out while trying to launch the app. My phone looks like this right now. My phone doesn't have anything on it. The screen's on, but it doesn't have anything on it except fingerprints apparently. That's not good. I'm gonna reboot that. Suffice it to say, this does work though. That code, I tested it in the project that I'm working on, and it works fine. I'm not gonna be able to show the mute button working, unfortunately, because I'm pretty much right out of time for today. Thanks for stopping by, iData. I hope you got something out of this. High school's fun. You don't get to, I don't know. When I was in high school, you didn't get to learn stuff like this. So I think it's cool that you're taking a look at something different. And that was a really good question about holding the button down. That's cool. Stop back by again sometime. I'll be around. But yeah, thanks for stopping by.